I'm Kyle Meredith, and with me this time, Colin Meloy, the Decemberists, back again. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. Last time we talked, you were solo, but the band's back together and rolling full speed. And I guess coming on almost a year now.
Has it been?
Well, the album was the end
well,
of 2014, I guess. So
the album came out this year, 2015.
That's right.
Came out in January.
maybe it was the singles started appearing in December. That's what I'm thinking about right
these
there.
days, it's hard to get it all.
Yeah, right. It's that. Well, I saw you. I guess on Twitter. Like the Echo and the Bunnymen thing with all music, we're debating, the edge of a year right here.
Oh,
Like,
right,
was
yeah.
83 or 84. Yeah,
important stuff. I thought that was a big gap. I couldn't believe that they didn't catch that.
No, can't get it all.
No.
Can't get it all.
Yeah, look at me. I'm just like a pedant. I'm just correcting
You're there
everyone
to
all the time.
Yeah, there to police us all.
God, sorry.
No, it's okay. But the cool thing is the album might be, towards the beginning of the year, but you're already back with a new EP, Florasongs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit. It's songs that we recorded during the sessions for What a Terrible World, What a Beautiful World. So it's not entirely new music per se. We tracked all 19 songs. The thing about this, and I've talked about this in interviews, is how every song was finished. We had enough time. We had like a year and a half, which we'd never had before, that much time to work on a record. So every song, typically if you work in a 5-week chunk, there are certain songs that just never make the cut. For whatever reason, they just, at a certain point in the day, you're like, no, let's not focus on that. We'll focus on it later. But then you'll never get back around to it. So there's always these little remainders that sort of never got their due.
Yeah.
And it's surprising because sometimes had that song got its due, it may have been a contender.
You've got greatest hits on this record, I think. When I listened to it, I was like, man, what a great song.
Oh, well, thank you.
I think there's at least a pair, and the EP is so new. I'm sorry, I'm getting not recalling the titles and everything, but they're right up towards the beginning too. But I'm like these were left off the album. I hear about bands doing that a lot, that it just didn't make sense at the time, and then you have the EP, and it's
for a budgetary reason, it probably didn't make a ton of sense. Like we could have been releasing this EP, and they would have been a bunch of half-finished songs. I think that's typically what the remainder EP is like. But these songs were totally finished, and at a point were on the record.
Right.
All of them. It was at one point a 19-track record, and because it took me longer than it's ever taken me to sequence it. And at one point I just gave in. It was like, there is a sequence where they all fit. But
it's a long record. I mean, the record was long.
That was already
14
long.
Tracks, right?
Yeah. And so to have it be 19 and a double record, everybody was kind of like, I don't know. And I feel that there are very few records that do warrant, a 19-song track list. And I don't know that this would be one of them. I wasn't going to be so ambitious. So we cut it back to 14. I don't know. I will question the sequencing of this record to my dying day.
I kind of like that there's an EP, though, because, it's talked about so many times, it almost becomes a cliche statement, like today's age, the digital age, like it's kind of a lost art of the EP. And I know you and I both grew up listening to a lot of bands where that was a part of it. The Smiths, it seemed like, or Morrissey solo, it seemed like every time a record came out, you could expect at least a new version of a greatest hits with some different songs and all this at the end, or an EP or something like that. So,
the age of the CD5 and the maxi single, single, it was good times.
Do you have any singles on the way?
On the way? No, I have them in a trunk somewhere, but not on the way.
There's so many artists actually doing I wouldn't say that it's a cassette resurgence, but there are more and more.
There's a label in Portland that does all cassette releases. I know it's kind of a thing.
Yeah. I don't think your guys' record is out. I don't think Capitol.
We did not put it on. That's one thing I can't really. I mean, I love cassettes are really what I cut my teeth on. Those mixtapes and buying cassettes. But I don't know that I have a ton of nostalgia for them, to be honest.
I think we talked about this last time. I don't know, but I don't have love for cassettes. I just don't. It's like it didn't make sense for me then. And while my son, he's 8, and he's getting really into them because he likes the novelty. They're not novel to him. They're still brand new. But
oh, really?
I'm like, okay, I'll share this with you, but once you're out of the car, that's it. I can't.
No, I mean, I still love. I mean, I do still have like a lot of love for them. It's particularly the process of making a mixtape. I think is gone. Where it was, you had to plan it out. You couldn't. It wasn't just like dropping things.
Not a playlist.
I think that was one of the things that most took a notch out of music loving for the entire world was when all of a sudden making a mix for somebody was just dropping tracks into a playlist and not like having to sit there and listen to each song all the way through, because you would have a stack of records or CDs and you'd be making it and you're like, oh, no, that can't follow that. I have to switch it up. So it was this constant, like you really had to listen to it all the way through. And I think that was just I probably how I learned, or how I created my own, tastes in how a record should flow, is from making mixtapes. And I don't know that you'd be able to do that just from dropping into a playlist.
Well, I'll tell you what I've done that's kind of fun, and I don't know many people that'll go through this much trouble because playlists are so easy, is I'll get something like GarageBand and drop all the files in there so I can actually like beat match and overlay so they can fade into the other ones.
Don't beat match.
Just like, one ends right on the beat of the next one, so it's
okay.
like instantly in there. So that's what I mean. So, it makes, and then I put it out as one file.
Oh, wow.
So you just have to hit play,
I never went. I never got. I knew people would do that. With like mixers. Would kind of crossfade.
Yeah,
between.
That's kind of fun.
I never did that. I liked the song gap. It was important to me that it was sort of religious about each song being its own individual thing.
See, I love when the rock operas would, all do that and everything. They would all
that's a
like
rock
that.
opera. They're all pieced together, but like, I don't know, Killing Moon wasn't meant to segue into Every Day is Like Sunday.
Although I might have to try that just to see.
You should give it a shot, but it wasn't designed that way.
Oh. The Decemberists are playing tonight in Louisville. We should talk about this. The last time you guys were here, it ended up on your live album.
Oh, it did? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I feel like either that was just a performance that stood out, or you said, I want to take one from that show blindly. I don't know how that whole sequencing happened for that, but that was awesome. Like when you're a fan and especially, you look back at us as kids and you're looking at that and it's like, oh my God, it's my hometown. I was at that show. It's so cool to see that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool to make sure you're drawing from a pretty broad spectrum so people can have that connection to the record. But I mean, I spent a lot of time just listening to a lot of different tracks and deciding which is the best one, which was the one I didn't screw up the lyrics to, and things like that. And the Iroquois one might have been the only one of that particular track. But I do remember that being a fun show, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was a storm on the way.
Yeah,
there was something like that. It never hit, but
it was close.
You pushed it. You pushed it out of the bubble, or something like that. We love having you guys here, and I know there's a long history with Louisville, off and on throughout the years.
Yeah, there has been, it seems like.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Beyond that, so that happened. The live album came out, and then it was, all that talk of the self-imposed hiatus, as you were mentioned earlier. That's got to happen with a band, I suppose, at some point. And I know you've probably talked about this to death over the last year. But now that you have, like, the album comes out at the beginning of the year and you've done the tour for a while now, and for whatever distaste you might have had for being in a band at that, have you figured out, like, the new tricks to say, this is how we continue to sustain, this is how we go now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I regretted having even mentioned the word hiatus from the outset because we weren't gone for very long. I think it was for myself, my own mental, like, I was just like, we're going to take a break, and I'm really excited, and I want to tell everybody.
I'm going to shout it from the mountains.
I'm going to shout it from the mountains, but I probably could have just said nothing, and then it wouldn't have been, I think Rolling Stone did a thing like, they've reached the top, and now they're breaking up, and
it's the
everybody
Police
was
all
like,
over again.
What are you talking about? I said that we were taking a break. We're not breaking up. So now I know not to keep, or at least to be a little bit more, guarded in how I'm revealing the secrets of our future. I don't know. I think that there's actually really no thought about what's going to happen going forward. There's some little ideas circulating here and there. I know we don't want to be away as long as last time, but you gotta make sure you have something good before you throw it out into the world. So,
but did it get to a point though, at whatever it was that was really getting on your nerves at that point? Is part of it that you were just, what do they say, on a hamster wheel? That you have to pull back and say, I have to figure out a new way to do this.
Yeah, I definitely felt that way. That we had been 10 years as a touring band, and it was the same you know, write songs, record them, release the record, tour, and then by the time the touring was done, it was time to get back to writing.
Yeah.
And it did feel like this sort of endless cycle that I was seeing spooling out before me, my entire life. And there are other things that I wanted to do. I had these other ambitions, which have been great, and I want to continue to do. So now it's cool to find a way to do both things, and have them both be sort of sustainably coexisting, and that's the idea.
It was in the old days that a band would break up because they didn't know anything better, and it seems like bands have figured that out. Like, you don't have to break up if you don't hate each other.
Yeah.
You just take a break and you do other things. That open marriage with inside a band.
Yeah, I think that's. I can't imagine what it would take to actually break up. You would have to be really at each other's throats. And we started playing together. I was in my late 20s, which is like an old man on rock and roll age. And so we were all kind of adults, and so we had gotten past that, early 20s or late teens where you just fall in with whoever's around and that's your band.
Right.
And I can see that stuff crumbling around you fairly quickly because you're still figuring out who you are and what your role in the world. But I think at the time that we started, we were all mature enough. I think we'd all had bands before and all knew what was going on, that now we have our differences, and we do have like childish fallings outs and are grumpy at one another, but it doesn't mean that we're, everything's going to crumble around us.
Or you have a band like REM who said, let's call it a day right here.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking that you guys are going to do that at any point, but I feel like that's one way. That was a nice way to do it, actually.
That makes perfect sense. I think that they were just looking at the climate of, what the music was like, what their audience was doing. I mean, with the general, like music listening audience, not just theirs. I mean, it's become a very, very different world than when they started. And I think they were like, this is just, we're not, the good stuff doesn't outweigh the bummer stuff anymore. Right. So that's my read on that, and it does make perfect sense.
The little salute, and we'll see you later.
Yeah.
You were talking about the the early days for you guys and being where you were. I've noticed with the last couple records that you've kind of gotten away from the theatrics of the old Decemberists, maybe what you're known for. I mean, these two records sound like a very comfortable band,
right.
And I say that in all respect. It's great music you're doing, but I know it's kind of that impossible question, as you said, not knowing exactly in the future. But is that kind of a chapter closed? Those kind of theatrics when you look at the hazards of love and
right.
Those kind of things. Do you see yourself as a kind of a different band these days than that?
No, not at all. I mean, I think we're a band that from the outset has kind of gone through lots of changes. We started out as one thing, a kind of a polite sort of modern pop folk band, and then and then dabbled in prog,
right.
And then became full prog, and then dialed it back and did some sort of country-ish things. I don't see any of those chapters closing. I feel like it's just part of another layer of who we are, and it's cool because it gives you something to go, do you remember? Like, I think when we were putting together the set list for these tours, I was like, God, remember when we were a prog band? And I was like, I want to be a prog band again. And so I have a feeling that stuff will kind of rear its head again. Not in the.
I mean, there's no band like the Decemberists. I can't name it. There's no. It's funny because when a new band comes out, it's that automatically. Well, this is who they sound like. And if you go back to that person, it's like, well, this is who they sound like. And I know there have been like the REM comparisons or something like a few of those, but really, there's no band that sounds like the Decemberists. Like right now, I couldn't say, that's. No.
Yeah.
It doesn't come through like that.
I think that's a good thing. I think that's
it's
a good
great
thing. I think that was sort of maybe hard won for us to get there, but we did it.
When I was looking back actually through the history and kind of all the promo stuff, it occurred to me, and maybe this has been put on you before, but you kind of are style trendsetters in a way. Because there's always this visual piece to the Decemberists as well, and it was a great art piece usually with the albums. But there was kind of costumes, and even your new ones, everybody looks very nice and very 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 sleek. Have you ever thought of yourself as Has style really ever been a part of it up here as you're
No.
putting it together?
Oh my God, no! I'm so ill-suited for my job in that respect, as being any kind of style icon. I'm a style bumbler. I think that all along, I don't think I was ever really meant. I like playing music and I like writing music and I like performing, but the sort of the role of a performer or rock star is the most. I'm so not meant for that, or I'm ill-fitted for that. And so my guiding light has always been just do whatever seems right,
Right. Right.
And sometimes that means, dressing up in weird costumes, and sometimes that means just wearing your street clothes or, a suit or and so I think we've just sort of followed our whims, or in point of probably my whims more than others. And that's led us to some kind of funny places that maybe don't make a ton of sense now, but I think it's sort of made us, who we are today.
Yeah. Well, I noticed especially those early shoots and
Yeah,
what,
the photo
that,
shoots.
yeah, that ended up being like you saw a lot of that come out of Brooklyn and that scene,
Right.
and that was kind of interesting to say, haha, you were there first.
Yeah, maybe. There was a thing where every single photo shoot had some sort of narrative to it, which takes a lot of work, by the way.
What's great though,
And it was like our budgets were always scant, and then the narratives got even more. I remember there was one we did for a magazine where you could not have told what was going on, but it was a fortune teller telling the fortune of a husband and wife about their former lover, and like that's Nate, who's a ghost behind. Like you couldn't have actually parsed out the narrative from looking at the photograph, but it was there, and it's sort of absurd. And I don't know, maybe that's something that I'm not as interested in anymore. I think I was maybe hiding, from my own fear of doing promo photos or discomfort with doing promo photos. It was like, oh, we'll just make a game out of it, and I think we're doing that less. Maybe we're just more comfortable with ourselves now.
I saw it as kind of another dimension. I mean, I love when a band has extra steps or depth beyond the songs on the record. It's like future things to hold on to. Luckily with you, I mean, there have been the books that's been great, but there's always kind of been this other thing. I mean, it's just a lost art of rock star. It always sounds silly to use that, and I use that a lot, but it's that lost art of the entertainer that a fan can get with the Decemberists.
Well, there's a lot of dimension. I mean, you can muck around with a lot of the different facets of what it is to be a band, and it just depends whether or not you want to go there or not, I guess.
Well, I love that you're still a band. I'm excited about the future of the Decemberists. And I love this new EP, Florasongs.
Great.
So
thank
you
you
so much.
Thanks very
All
much.
right,
Thanks
Colin,
for having me.
It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah.
All
See you around.
Colin Meloy.
I